Alright, so one thing about this video, I don't really have footage or really have anything to show you. So I'm basically taking a compilation of Vietnam Era footage and I'm just gonna have it play in the background because I don't really feel it. I feel like that'd be the best way, since I don't really have nothing to show you, physically show you, because I don't own any of these rifles. If you want to see those types of rifles, or you want to see them how they work and operate up close, there's a guy named Ian McCollum that does a beautiful job of doing this on his Forgotten Weapons channel. If you already know who I'm talking about, then you know that he would be perfect for what you're looking for. Let's start with the development of the AR-10. So, but first, we gotta go to where Arma-lite began. So, Arma-lite began as a small engineering concern founded by George Sullivan and funded by the Fairchild Engine and Airplane Corporation. In the beginning, this small group of engineers worked on making survival rifles and things like that for downed U.S. airplane crew. Arma-lite was never intended to be an arms manufacturer, but more of a company that sold small arm concepts and designs to manufacturers. Now, while George Sullivan was testing the prototype of Arma-lite AR-15 survival rifle, he came into contact with Eugene Stoner and hired him as his chief of design engineer. Now, the first prototypes of the 7.62x51 AR-10 emerged during 1955 and early 1956, and at the time the United States Army was in the midst of testing several rifles to replace the obsolete M1 Garand. Now, other designs were submitted, like the T-44E4 and the T-44E5, which you now know as the M14, and were basically updated versions of the Garand chambered for the new 7.62 round. Arma-lite's AR-10 entered the competition late, hurriedly submitting 2 hand-built AR-10 rifles based on the 4th prototype in the fall of 1956 for testing. AR-10 prototypes, 4 in all, featured a straight-line stock, rugged elevated sights, and oversized aluminum flash suppressor and recoil compensator, and an adjustable gas system. In the 4th and final prototype, the upper and lower receiver were hinged with the now familiar hinge and takedown pins. The charging handle did not reciprocate, and it was not attached to the bolt carrier. Now, for a 7.62x51 NATO rifle, the AR-10 prototype was incredibly lightweight, with only a whopping 6.85 pounds. That's emptied, by the way. Initially, comments by Springfield Armory test staff were favorable, and some tests commented that the AR-10 was the best lightweight automatic rifle ever tested by the Armory. Unfortunately for Arma-lite, the rifle's aluminum steel composite barrel, an untried prototype design, burst in the torture test conducted by Springfield Armory in early 1957. Arma-lite quickly replaced it with a conventional steel barrel, but the damage had already been done. The Springfield Armory report advised against the adoption of the rifle. While Arma-lite objected, it was clear that the AR-10, a brand new rifle still in prototype stage, was at a disadvantage compared to competing designs with longer development cycles. And by 1957, the U.S. infantry forces urgently required a modern, magazine-fed infantry rifle to replace the M1. The Army chose the conventional T-44, which, like I said, Alright, now that we've gone over the AR-10, let's go talk about the AR-15. Now, the AR-15 was designed by 3 people: Eugene Stoner, Jim Sullivan, and Bob Fremont. Alright, so development. In 1959, the Arma-lite sold its rights to the AR-10 and AR-15 due to financial difficulties and limitations in terms of manpower and production capacity. After modifications, most notably the charging handle was relocated from under the carry handle like the AR-10 to the to the rear of the receiver like you see now. Another thing I want to point out is that the forward assist was not on the AR-10 and early AR-15 rifles. They actually, the Air Force and the Army wanted forward assists. The Air Force didn't, so that's why you see M16 and M16A1. Another thing that come out of the M16A1 was its flash hider. The original one was kind of like a three-pronged thing, and troops would use it to cut wire, and it would snap off and break, so they made an enclosed birdcage, A1 birdcage one that you see. So, like I said, as you know, the United States Army chose the T-44, now called the M14. They also adopted the M60 general purpose machine gun, which I can probably do a video on if you want. Its NATO's partners adopted the FN-FAL and the HKG-3 rifles, as well as the FN MAG and Rheinmetall MG3s. The first confrontations between the AK-47 and the M14 came in early part of the Vietnam War. Battlefield reports indicated that the M14 was uncontrollable in full auto, and that soldiers could not carry enough ammo to maintain fire superiority over the AK. And while the M2 carbine offered a rate of fire that it was high rate of fire, it was underpowered and ultimately outclassed by the AK-762 round. A replacement was needed. A medium between the traditional preference for high-powered rifles such as the M14 and lightweight firepower of the M2 carbine was needed. Cue the AR-15. In 1958, Arma-lite submitted 10 AR-15s and 100 25-round magazines for ConArc testing. The test found that 5 to 7-man teams with AR-15s had about the same firepower as 11-man teams armed with M14s. And that soldiers armed with AR-15s could carry 3 times more of the ammunition as those carried by M14s. That would be 649 rounds to 220 rounds. And the AR-15 was 3 times more reliable than the M14. However, General Maxwell Taylor, then Army Chief of Staff, vetoed the AR-15 in favor for the M14. And in 1959, Arma-lite, now frustrated with the lack of results and suffering ongoing financial difficulties, sold its rights to the AR-10 and AR-15 to Colt. After acquiring the AR-15, Colt promptly redesigned the rifle to facilitate mass production. Colt then renamed and branded the rifle to the Colt Arma-lite AR-15 Model 01. In July 1960, General Curtis Lee May, then Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, was impressed by the demonstration of the AR-15 and ordered 85,000 rifles. In the meantime, the Army would continue testing the AR-15, finding that the intermediate cartridge 223-556 rifle would continue testing. Rifle is much easier to shoot than the standard 7.62 by 51 NATO that the M14s had or were shooting. And in 1961 marksmanship testing, the U.S. Army found that 43% of AR-15 shooters achieved expert, while only 22% of the M14 rifle shooters did so. Also, a lower recoil impulse allowed for the more controllable automatic weapon fire. In the summer of 1961, General Lee May was promoted to Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force and requested an additional 80,000 AR-15s. However, Maxwell General D. Taylor, now Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who repeatedly clashed against LeMay, advised President JFK that having 2 different calibers within the military system at the time would be problematic, and the request was rejected. In October 1961, William Goodell, I can't say his name, a senior man at the Advanced Research Projects Agency, sent 10 AR-15s to South Vietnam. The reception was enthusiastic, and in 1962, another 1,000 AR-15s were sent. The United States Army Special Forces personnel filed battlefield reports lavishly praising the AR-15 and the stopping power of the 5.56 cartridge, and pressed for its adoption. Now, The damage caused by the 5.56 bullet was originally believed to be caused by tumbling, and this is due to a slow 1 in 14 inch rifling twist rate. However, any pointed lead core bullet with tumble after penetration in flesh, because the center of gravity is towards the rear of the bullet, large wounds observed by soldiers in Vietnam were actually caused by bullet fragmentation, which was created by the combination of bullet's velocity and construction. However, despite overwhelming evidence that the AR-15 could bring more firepower to bear than the M14, the Army opposed the adoption of the new rifle, and testers were biased towards the M14. In January 1963, Secretary McNamara received reports that the M14 production was insufficient to meet the needs of the armed forces and ordered a halt to M14 production. At the time, the AR-15 was the only rifle that could fill a requirement for the universal role for issue to all services. For issue to all services. Yeah. McNamara ordered its adoption. Thank you for sitting through this video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, because I enjoyed doing this, and I really enjoyed talking about the history of firearms. So, if yeah, like I said, if you want to see more, please like, and hopefully you enjoyed. If there's anything I can get better on these videos, please let me know, and I'll try and work on that. But I'll see you next time.